So after a disappointing game one, the Heat managed to bounce back and pull off one of the biggest upsets so far in the playoffs. And I don't think anyone was expecting a win in Boston the way they did it, where they executed on both ends of the floor. They held the Celtics offense to what you'd want them to do. They showed up on offense. They made a lot of threes. Players stepped up. Tyler Herro had arguably his best game of his career. Everything was just going well. And given the context of this team and the opponent, this was probably the most impressive win in the playoffs in the last 5 years. Without Jimmy Butler, without your starting point guard, players having career games, this was one of the best games I've seen. And they did so by having major adjustments from game one. They got dominated in game one, where the Celtics just blew them out the game with their threes. The Heat couldn't get anything on offense going as well. It was just one of those games where it was over before it started. And the Heat adjusted by raising their 3-point volume. They also limited the Celtics. They adjusted on defense with how they dealt with isolations, not pressing, not trapping, not sending so many doubles. And then you had players stepping up, players making shots, players having career games. And it was just an all-around great performance. So let's just go through exactly how they did it. Without making it too simple, too obvious, and just lazy analysis, a lot of it just came down to making shots. That was the biggest difference maker from game one, because you can see it even happened in game one, where they had 35 points in the fourth quarter because they made threes, and where they shot 7 threes in the fourth quarter alone. Because that's the only way they can generate offense against this type of team, and that was the difference maker in game two, where their shots went in. That was it. There were some differences, some of the reads that Tyler Herro was making that we'll go through, but for the most part, players just made shots that they missed in game one. You can see here right away, a lot of the looks are just the same ones that you saw in game one. Jaime is a pick and roll. While we're showing help, Jovic goes up and just makes it. Here it's a Herro, Jovic pick and roll, step back. Herro was missing those looks in game one, and he was just feeling it in game two. Same thing here. See, pick and roll, handoff, nothing. So then Duncan goes screens, draws 2 on the ball, another 3. Those are the looks that they were missing in game one. Transition. I don't think Herro made a transition 3 in game one, makes in game two. And it's very simple, but that makes all the difference in the world. Because that's like 6, 7, 8 threes they were making that they just couldn't hit in game one. That's 24, 30 points that you're leaving on the table. And I don't think there was many adjustments on this part. Same like with this Herro step back. Those are just the looks that they were taking and missing. So yeah, if the adjustment is take and make threes, then that's what they did. A lot of it does come down to the Celtics defense. You can see some of the closeouts. You're not going to get gaslit by Brown and everyone else on the Celtics that they were closing out well, or that those were good closeouts. Those are lazy closeouts. On some of them, there wasn't a hand in the air or anything. But this is how they need to do it. They need to put up threes and they need to make threes. If you're not going to make 40%, the chances of the Heat putting up 90 points goes down like drastically. Outside of the shots falling down, there has to be credit given to Tyler Herro for making those reads, making those extra passes in the first place. Because the defense played them exactly the same how they did in game one, except it was a whole different Tyler Herro game from then. It was different how he went about his pick and rolls. It was different with how he was looking for his shot more than his pass. Even though the defense was still helping off, was still sending so much help on his drives in the paint, giving him those looks on the kickouts, but he just wasn't making them. And in game two, he adjusted. He recognized those reads early, where anytime he saw 2 bodies, where he engaged 2, draw 2 on the ball, he made that extra pass, and he was a big reason why they had 57% of their shots from 3. Combine that with a hot shooting night, that's where you get the offense rolling, where they were able to get over 110 points. So this was his best passing game of his career. Don't think that's an argument there. So let's just go through some of those clips and see exactly kind of reads he was making. Starts here with a Herro Bam pick and roll. Draws Brown from the strong corner, makes that read. Instead, last game I don't think he made that read. Same thing here, handoff, gets downhill, recognises Bam in a paint, and that puts the defense in rotation, gets wide open 3 out because of it. Same thing here, you can see Brown helping already, quickly makes that extra pass, and Caleb gets wide open 3. Here goes drives, attacks, engages 2, wide open pop. I think he just recognised that those looks were going to be open all the time. Here he wasn't even looking at Caleb. He just knew he was going to be open. What's here? Same thing. Engage 2, open pop for Jovic, and that opens up another rotation. Gets Caleb wide open 3. Bam pick and roll. Again, sees that strong side help, kicks it right quickly. He wasn't making those reads in game 1. Same here, he engaged 2 on the baseline drive. Great Jaime for lifting. Quickly recognises that. Instead of going for that pull up 2, he just was looking to facilitate all the time. Even getting Bam on a lob. He was just recognising the defense before he attacked. And that just opened up so much. And I want to get to these last few plays in the fourth quarter, because that's when he really stepped up. When I really like those plays and the decision before going into the actual pick and roll. Because you can see here, has Drew get Sam Hauser on him first. That's smart. Get the weaker defender. Now Sam Hauser will be trailing. Drew will be helping off, and that gets Dillon wide open 3. Then once Sam Hauser went off the bench, Herro went hunting for Tatum. Because I think out of Derrick White, Drew Holiday, and even Brown, Tatum was one of the worst screen navigators. So you'd want to have Tatum guard Herro, and that also takes him away from being in help side position, being that help defender, which is Tatum's more impactful role. So now Tatum is tasked with guarding Herro. Again, just flow into another pick and roll, force him to navigate screens, engages 2, opens up Bam on a pocket pass for pull up 2. Same thing here. First gets Tatum on a switch, now engages 2 because they didn't want to switch that. So now you're putting 2 on the ball, defense in rotation. Get Hayward gets another 3. Same thing here. Gets Tatum quickly on a switch, throw into another pick and roll, draws defense. Jaime gets wide open 3. Now it's just back to White with him. Now Kristaps is playing high up. He's putting 2 on the ball now. Great pass. Opens up for a good look for Bam in the paint. And we finish off again here. Bam pick and roll, draws 2. Derrick White was already helping. He was ignoring Caleb here because he knows that drive's coming. Recognize that quickly. And that's where Herro was just picking the defense apart. He knew the defender was going to be there all the time, and he just recognized the pass, made those extra reads, and just had his career game in the playoffs. Other things that stood out on offense to me, again, it's just Bam isolations. It's the same thing that happened in game 1. It's him attacking Kristaps, it's him attacking Brown and Horford. But I just wasn't a fan of him just settling for some of the mid-range shots. I think this one's here, where he just backs Brown up and just goes for that fade. Though in both games 1 and 2, Celtics have shown they are willing to live with those shots without sending extra help, without sending a double, without sending any kind of help. But these are the looks he can do. He can get against Kristaps, against Brown. He can get into the rim, and that's what he needs to do instead of setting for those kind of looks. He needs to put some pressure on the rim where he can, because right now he's the only matchup available without Butler that could do something, and that's needed. He needs to force the defense to do something, because living just on those shots is not going to be good enough, because even if he's shooting 50-55%, that's still a good outcome for the Celtics, especially given how Celtics are playing on offense. They're just playing the numbers game, and then those kind of possessions here where he just backs him down and gets to the rim, those are possessions that would do something to the defense. Those are the looks that you can't give up consistently, and those are the only looks that could generate more threes and do something with the defense. And that's the only way the Heat would be able to generate offense. But if you're only relying on those stagnant, no one else touches the ball, it's not going to be a good outcome. Finally, we also had a Jaime doing Jaime things. He did struggle from the field, struggled with the shooting, but it still impresses me with how easily he's able to just get downhill, beat his guys off the dribble. Here's a pick and roll, rejects the screen. Look how easily gets to the rim and draws the foul. Here, falls into pick and roll, turns the corner easily, makes the skip pass. And that ability to just take his man off the dribble, be able to provide that rim pressure, is such a needed thing, especially for this team. He just needs to make those shots. Because you will see here, he's able to get downhill easily. Here he draws the foul. That's another sign of him from him just being aggressive. But here he gets Hauser, attacks him. Help doesn't come, but then just struggles finishing inside. And those struggles finishing inside needs to get better. Like, those are good looks. Those are good looks that he just needs to make, because he's able to generate 5, 6, 7 shots at the rim quite easily, especially if they are not sending that much help. And that's 10 to 14 extra points. And that's another action from a player that could generate something on offense and force the defense to react. Because once he gets 3 or 4 shots at the rim that easily all draw fouls, that's sending help. Or it's forcing a better defender to be on him instead of Sam Hauser, instead of Pritchard. And that opens up someone else. And he just needs to continue to be that aggressive and continue to actually just make those shots at the rim. And that's everything on offense. That is the blueprint for the Heat, given their roster, given what they are able to do without Jimmy Butler, without Terry Rozier. They need to put up threes, and they need to hope they make a lot of threes. That's the only way they can generate any kind of offense, put up any kind of points without that rim pressure, without drawing fouls, without having that isolation scorer as well. That has been a blueprint since 2022 as well, where it's been successful when it works. That's how the Heat were able to pull off some of those upsets in regular seasons, where they were missing Bam, missing Herro, missing Butler, and had Kyle Guy put up shots. They had Kyle Lowry just running the show with undrafted guys because they just put up threes, and they made them. That was the season where they shot 40% from three, and they just heated up whenever they were short-handed. So that's really all there is on offense with the Heat. Without that happening, I don't think there's any room for error, unless the Celtics also really struggle. If both teams are in the mud, then you'll take their chances. I think it would be a flip when it comes to that. Except the Celtics would have a much easier way of getting out of the mud. But if the Heat are not making threes, their chances of winning are almost zero. But now let's just get to the defense, because that's also been important in this win, with how they slow down their historic offense. So in game one, the Celtics just blew the Heat out of the game because of their threes. They made a lot of threes. I think they hit 23, and a lot of it was coming down because of the Heats were in rotations time and time again. They were sending doubles, they were over helping, and guys were just getting wide open looks. They had 60% of their shots coming from the three, and when you're shooting 40% on those looks, it's likely to be over for you. So the Heat adjusted to limit those looks. If you want to take down Boston, you need to slow down the offense. And slow down the offense, it's to limit their threes. And they did that, and that dropped to 40%. They also shot 37%. So 37% shooting on only 2/5 of your shot from the three. That's the blueprint on slowing down the Celtics offense enough to make this a game where you can win it. And the Heat did so by one simple thing. They no longer sent aggressive help. They didn't double in isolation and post-ups. They were still showing help. They just didn't do it at different times, and they did it in different ways. Where they still showed bodies. They still had guys in the paint. Just be there just in case. But they didn't commit. They didn't commit enough where the Celtics were able to just put them in rotations, forcing them to make those long rotations. Because one in game one, Tatum had just skips over the court, and that forced the Heat to just make so many rotations across the board, across the court. That just didn't happen. And one thing that this also forces, it encourages isolations. So let's just look at some of those clips with how they dealt with the isolations. His Drew against Jaime, no help is showing. They're letting them, they're trusting the defense, going 1v1. Game 2, that was already a double, and that would have been a 3 for Drew Holiday. Instead, they just switch. They also switched a lot. That forces stagnation as well. You had Caleb showing help, but it was an aggressive double, and instead it's a pull-up 3 from Tatum without anything else. And when you have size like this from Jovic, you can also trust them not giving up easy shots. Okay, what is this possession? Just a bunch of nothing with Brown just settling for a tough shot. And those are the looks that they encourage because of they without sending help. And even if you make it, you're making twos that are tough from the mid-range instead of a Sam Hauser wide open 3 from the corner. You'd live with those kind of looks from Tatum. You'd live with those pull-up shots instead of a catch and shoot on rhythm. And that's really how the Heat just prevented those high 3-point volume from the Celtics. They trusted the defense in isolations. They allowed the Celtics to just go 1v1 and force them to beat them with tough shots. Now, I also want to highlight some of a few clips of them just playing really good defensive possessions and how it really just stole the Celtics offense. It stole their driving kicks, the movement, being put in defensive rotations that allowed those easy looks, either at the rim or 3. And it all just starts with those matchups. You start with Bam on Tatum. That allows that switch with Jovic. That kills already the time. It's 16 seconds on the clock. You have Caleb showing help. Not aggressively doubling, but just enough that Tatum sees him. Tatum waits. He's still there at the nail, just showing help. And now when it's 10 seconds on the clock, you double. You only have very few rotations to make. And that's a tough shot. That's a different type of shot that you'd get if you just double right away. And that's already... because you're then fighting against the clock as well. If you're getting doubled with 6-7 seconds on the clock, you're kicking it out, and then you have to make quick decisions. You can't just do something else because you know you still have the time left to do it. And those timely defensive aggressive helps shows is how the Heat just baited the Celtics into those stagnant isolations and then still showed help when they needed to. Then there was also deep possessions like these where Herro has the drive against Pritchard on the baseline, but he just doesn't allow it to go further. Everyone stays home. You can see Bam recovering back to Brown, Jovic taking Kristaps, Caleb going back to White, and the defense is just not in rotations. Defense just resets right here, and Jovic, great fronting, gets the turnover. That all starts with just good man-to-man defense, good Herro just staying with Pritchard, not allowing to get beat, not allowing Bam to help, because he didn't need to. He could have just stayed with Brown, deny that kick out to the corner, and there's nowhere else to go. Pritchard just dribbles it out, and defense resets. Same thing here. And when the defense just constantly switches, the offense will just get baited into those matchup hunting. They're looking to get Duncan on the switch. They do a good job avoiding it, but he still wants to do it. Tatum now tries to flow into it as a screener. That's taking the time off the clock. And now you just flow into a tough contested shot from Drew. And that was just a great defensive effort from the Heat. A great adjustment and great trust in the players to hold up their own and then just show help when they need to. Don't put yourself in rotation, and now the Celtics have to go to work in isolation, go into post-ups. They did have some of the looks that they just didn't make, but this is much better. way to go about it than what they did in game 1. Unfortunately, this was still a game in the third quarter. The Celtics still did put up so many points when it was a tied game, despite shooting poorly, despite not putting up threes as they wanted to, and that's because of the rim defense. Some of the isolations against certain matchups, they just got whatever they wanted. You see here Brown against Herro. No, this was Tatum against Jovic. Just easily beats him off the dribble. If you're not sending help, that kind of defense has to be better. Here, Drew just goes at Herro easily, backs him down. No help is sent, so easily just backs him down to the rim. Celtic had a 30% rim frequency, and they just made everything out of the rim. That's just too easy for Brown. And that's how it was. Brown here, again, off the ball, just too easy. And that's how they were in the game. Despite the 3-point shooting, despite the Heat just making all their threes, they made up the game in the paint. That's where they dominated. Because when you're shooting that easily and that frequently in the paint at the rim, you're just going to match that kind of output from the 3-point line. That's where the Heat have to be better. That's where the defense from Herro, from Delon, from Caleb, from Jovic have to be better man to man to just not get beat that easily. Because you can't give up so many shots at the rim like this. And that's where the lack of defenders, the lack of size to just not give up those easy looks hurts the Heat. And that's how the Celtics can still manage to be in the game without shooting great from three or shooting a lot of threes. And that's where it will continue to hurt the Heat. But overall, this was pretty much a perfect game from the Heat. They shouldn't have won this game. They shouldn't have gone to Boston on the road without their best player and just pull off a win like this. They just show they can outwork you, they can adjust, and they can win short-handed. They can make up those differences, and it's not going to be easy. Even if they lose, they're not going to go down without an easy fight. And you'd have players stepping up. You have heroes stepping up as a playmaker, as a passer. You had Bam just doing Bam things on defense as well. We had Jovic switching everywhere. Caleb did a good job on Kristaps. Everyone was just doing their thing. This was also ECF Caleb doing his thing. And the Heat just showed that they are a really good team, even though they shouldn't have had the chance to win.